I think so.
All right, there you go.
Okay, all right. All right, it is 6:09, probably the latest start, right, Cindy?
I'm sure.
And it's a good thing this is an extra meeting and not a required meeting. Well, welcome to the December meeting. I appreciate everybody coming in. I know we voted on having an additional meeting and I know everybody agreed that we really should meet December. Because none of us wanted to show up in January and still try to figure out what we're gonna be doing. So, I appreciate everybody coming. I know this time of year is a crazy time of year. Actually, it ended up being really, this is the only night of this entire week that I had open for a meeting. So Cindy, you made the right choice. But the food, by the way, is from Mario. So those of you that are in person, Mario's Meat Market gets the credit for doing it. So it's just a little gift for being here and in person and coming in December. So
Well, thank you.
also, you know, if you wanna take a plate to go, if there are plates or if there's cookies, eat a cookie here. Don't be afraid of not eating it because you wanna take it home. Eat one here and then bring one home. We need to make sure that staff gets them though too. But at any time that you wanna just get up and eat, obviously this meeting is more of an open discussion meeting, so we can try to figure out what we're gonna do. Hopefully by the end of it tonight, we'll have a focus for next year. But go up and get your drinks and food at any time. It's gonna be casual, so, anytime you wanna do that, that's fine. Did everybody have a chance to review, the agenda for tonight?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Did everybody get a chance to review the meeting minutes that were sent out for November's meeting? Okay. Do I have a motion to have those approved as they were stated?
I'll make a motion
You'll
to
make a
approve the minutes.
Everybody's in food coma now. A second?
I'll second it.
A second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I do.
Okay.
I object because the inaccuracies of it, it reads as if my motion followed Robert's Rules of Order, and they did not. The minute should reflect the mid-sentence interruption of my motion, which I never got to read in its entirety, and the inaccurate information given prior to the vote by Ms. Fisher and Mr. Ribble regarding the governor's letter that was incorrect, which was proven at November 16th action meeting when they were discussing it still being in the drafting phase, therefore not sent and received a response for it, as stated prior to our vote, which tainted the vote.
Okay. So Cindy, we need to discuss
Whoops, I'm sorry.
modifying or changing, I guess, is there any other discussion on that, on those comments?
Ms. Bruno can let us know what the procedure would be. Does she need to bring the motion forward again?
So I'm waiting for the minutes and I'm waiting for the agenda, and once I get it, I'll take a look.
Okay.
Hi, everybody, my name is Kathy Dupree-Bruno, I'm the School Board Attorney and General Counsel, so I'm here, I heard that there was some confusion on some Robert's Rules issues and maybe some sunshine issues, so I'm here to answer questions and help you facilitate this a little bit. So as soon as I get the minutes and everything, I'll be able to help a little bit.
Okay.
Should be coming. In the meantime, I did have
Thank you.
a text from Ms. Fisher, so I wanted to let you know, she's so sorry, she's unable to stay on. She'll send her report by email. My heartfelt thanks and wishes to all committee members for their support of this district. I wish for all good health, happiness, and peace for the holidays.
Okay, so the question with regards to the minutes, if somebody can please just point me to the right spot? Is that in the good of the order?
It was in the good of the order, correct?
It's towards the end.
What was
Or
that?
is it just towards the end?
Yeah. So there was a motion made during the good of the order, for our committee to recommend to the school board, that our recommendation would be to, have a letter sent.
Well, I never got to finish the motion.
Right, she was reading her motion, and it was interrupted during the middle of the motion and discussion started at that point. And she was never given the entire opportunity to read her, the complete motion.
So the minutes indicate that a motion was made by Melissa Hatter. That the CSI committee make a recommendation to the school board to submit a request to the governor to remove Chris Patrica from the school board. The motion was seconded by Rainey Hall. Committee members discussed the recommendation. Brian Rasnick called for a vote and the motion failed with 2 in favor and 6 opposed. Is that accurate?
No. The motion was interrupted, I never got to complete it, so that's not the entire motion of what it was supposed to be.
Is the motion seconded?
Yes. And then Remy Hall asked to
Well,
participate in
kind of,
this.
it really wasn't seconded because I never even heard the whole motion.
Right,
She was interrupted, Robert's Rules of Order weren't followed, she was interrupted and then Mr. Ribble called for a vote, which was awkward,
I just call point of order.
okay.
right,
Okay,
for
the
something that
reason
has to do with
Yeah.
strategic plan.
So then he said nobody even seconded it, so I seconded it just to second it, but I didn't really even know what I was seconding.
But she wasn't allowed to participate in discussion. She questioned Ms. Fisher's statement that the letter had gone to the governor already and you'd received a reply. Because that's what Ms. Fisher stated before we voted, which it hadn't, because November 16th, you guys were still discussing it at the immediate workshop. And when she stated, we have to have a discussion, Mr. Ribble told her, you already did. No, she was replying to Ms. Fisher. She didn't get to comment or discuss the motion at all, which was never even finished.
So was there a vote?
Yes.
There was a call for a vote after giving us false information before the vote, which tainted the vote.
Alright, so I guess the first thing is that there's a question with regards to the good of the order that this motion was not completely stated. There was a point of order that was called, but it was not properly seconded, and so the vote really didn't happen, right? Is that fair to say?
Well, the vote happened, but
But it
But
was not
leadership
in a
providing false
proper
information influencing the vote.
Correct.
Okay, so it's a little confusing.
It is.
Because I'm looking at the minutes, but this is not what I'm hearing that happened, right?
Correct.
Am I correct?
I sent you the transcript of it as well.
You sent me, yeah, okay.
Okay. She brought this up. Two of us in the room objected because her comments were not relative to our business at hand. Under Robert's rules, questions relating to motions is the order. Your motion must relate to the business at hand. If you take a look at our responsibility, what we're all given this, what our jobs are, what our purview is as board members here, there's nothing in here that says we're to provide governance for the board of directors. There's not, it doesn't mention that in here at all. So that's why, if you wanna redo this again tonight, I'm fine with it.
If I
But
could have finished,
But I don't wanna
I
be painted as a villain.
could have
because I was
said how
going
it
by-
related to the strategic plan.
I'm fine with that, but it's not in our purview.
I understand. So does somebody act as your parliamentarian in this meeting, or is it just Mr. Chairman, you're the
Yeah.
one who, okay.
Correct.
All right, let me just take a look at this. Okay, all right, so I guess the first thing is, Ms. Hatter, you were saying something about the minutes, and I just read it, what were you saying? You were saying that the
That they're
minutes
in- Correct, it looks like Robert's rules are followed and that I got to complete my motion and I did not.
Okay, so do you, are you?
And then we were given incorrect information, so I'd like that information corrected.
Okay, so I don't see anything about that part of the information, but are you asking that the minutes be approved with the amendments that you would like to make to the minutes? And what
Yes.
are those amendments that you would like to make to the
That the
minutes?
motion was interrupted and was not allowed to,
Okay, so you wanna make a
Follow
motion to do that?
yes,
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a
And
motion.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'm gonna help.
Yep,
I'd like to make a motion to amend the minutes to state that my motion was interrupted and was not carried out following Robert's rules of order.
okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
I have video if anybody wants to dispute it. I have a video clip of it.
Chairman, ask for any discussion, is there any discussion?
Well, I think so too. I'm actually glad this was brought up tonight because when I reviewed the minutes, yeah, that what is written in the minutes is definitely not what I seconded it. It was never said like that at the last meeting.
So at this point, is there a vote to, Mr. Carter, if you don't mind restating your motion? Let me write it down so I make sure I got the motion correct. What was your motion again with regards to minutes?
My motion, hold on, so I can read the entire thing.
Well, do you mean just
No, the
your
motion
right?
tonight, no,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
motion.
right,
Oh,
right,
the
what
motion
I
now.
suggested, I wanna make sure I got it
Is that
right.
I would like to correct the minutes to reflect what transpired with the motion that it was interrupted, not allowed to be read completely, and Robert's rules of order were not
There was a second, there's no, are there any further discussion?
So we'll put it to vote. All in favor for that motion, say aye. Anybody opposed to it?
Opposed.
Okay.
And I will abstain.
So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. And we have a abstain. Do we have a vote next to?
Well, why don't we do a roll call vote so we know
Okay.
the names, so who
So-
votes what?
because we didn't have a quorum.
So
for the
this
vote, did we?
this is just to allow her to
To re-
restate,
No,
it's just to correct the minutes. Just to
correct the
correct the
minutes.
minutes.
To
Correct.
reflect what can be seen on video, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if you wanna restate the motion, and then we can go ahead.
So the motion is that Ms. Hatter would like to modify the minutes from last meeting to reflect that she was not allowed to complete her motion presented to the board, that she was interrupted and she would like that reflected in the minutes. Is that accurate?
So it was seconded, there was discussion, and now, Mr. Chairman, if you wanna do a roll call.
Okay, roll call, we'll start with Bill.
No,
Abstain, John.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
We have,
We have,
is it Brent,
Yeah, no.
Todd,
Yes, but I have a comment though.
okay, comment needed to happen during the discussion.
and Ron.
And Ron?
I'm abstaining. I didn't hear the question, so I'm abstaining.
And Zoom user, are you a committee member?
Yes, this is Ron Matthews, everyone. Sorry for not being able to be there. I had to travel today.
Okay, we have someone whose name is coming up as Zoom user. Are you a committee member?
Their microphone's muted, right?
Is that, I'm thinking that's mine, it's Lucinda DeFreitas.
Oh, thank you, Lucinda. You were here at the last meeting, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then we would need a vote, please.
Yeah, we need a vote, a response from you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Lucinda, could you vote, do you vote to have the minutes amended, yes or no? Are you able to hear? I'll put it in chat.
Well, here,
Oh, we can't use chat.
No.
I'm sorry, you can't, can you hear?
I can still hear you. I'm not sure she can.
Okay. All right, then,
I can hear,
and you can hear too, Ron, thank you. And Ron, you said,
so can I.
Ron, you were here at the last meeting, were you not?
Yes,
Okay, and what was your vote for the amendment of the minutes?
currently on this, I'm with the majority.
There is no majority.
There is no majority, it's 50-50 right now.
There's not currently a majority.
Okay, well then, I'm with amending them, that's fine.
Lucinda, are you able to hear us? Okay, sorry, having phone issues, it's really spotty, okay.
No, with amendment.
Okay, so we'll,
So what I have in there is that there was 4 votes of yes to agree to amend the minutes, 3 votes of no, and 1 abstention. Okay, so the motion carries.
So the minutes will be amended now. You want to move forward with your regular motion to adopt the minutes as amended.
So we're gonna change those, so do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I need to see the amendment because my name's on there seconding something and I have to see what I seconded, because I didn't second what was typed out.
It's my understanding that the minutes are going to reflect that the motion was not stated
Correct.
appropriately. It's what Mr. Rasnick said, so that second and all of that will be changed because there
Okay.
really was no motion.
So this vote is
Very
not a motion agreeing or not agreeing with what she made as a motion, this is just changing the minutes to say that her motion was not put through properly.
Very good.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second motion.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. The meeting minutes for November that are amended have been approved. All right, so board member report, we have no board member report, she's gonna send it to us via email?
Correct.
Okay. Cindy, how about I give you a minute or two to give us a report of something that's going on?
all right. Thank you. Well, we are happy to be back from Thanksgiving break and getting ready to move into winter break. So in the schools, it's a little bit hectic and crazy right now. The seniors are getting, everyone is getting ready for midterms as soon as they get back. So there's a lot of stress with that. We had our one board meeting for the month of December was last evening. We had 2 new attorneys who were appointed as part of our legal department restructuring. So I'm sure Mr. Bruno is very happy about that. We have tomorrow, we have a transportation breakfast at each of the transportation depots to thank our bus drivers. So it's a holiday breakfast, and we have a lot of our administrators and staff will be going out to help with that. Can't think of anything right off the top of my head else. Trying to figure out, is there anything that you think of? Oh, I do know. We have a survey out around ESSER funds, so that was forwarded to each of you. So if you have not had a chance, there was a briefing on that yesterday. And then there's a survey attached on our website where you can go in and provide feedback on how you believe those ESSER funds should best be used. And the ESSER funds are meant to help with COVID-related problems. So it's address and prevent COVID-related problems. So we really appreciate feedback from you on
And
that.
did I see that we got 187 or somewhere around there $1 million?
189, I believe.
189,
Yeah.
yeah. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, there's a lot of money and there's more coming. We had I believe it was 4 more grants come in this week, one around civics or US history, a couple of others. They continue to come in little bunches. So our grants department is going a little bit crazy right now because the deadlines are looming. Florida was not very good about getting information back to the federal Department of Education. So we're up against some really tight deadlines, so our plan needs to be sent to them by the 17th. So it's really quick.
Okay.
But we appreciate feedback on that.
Are we-
I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Since you mentioned the busing, are they still down quite a few drivers? Is that, how do they make it happen?
A lot of doubling up on buses. Yeah, it's very stressful for our drivers, it's stressful for our students, because some of the buses are habitually late. But, they're doing the best job they can. The bus drivers are really working hard. I mean, they are covering each other's routes. My daughter's a first-year teacher this year. She said there are some days when a bus will pick up a group of kids, take them home, turn around, come back, pick up another group of kids, take them on a different route. I mean, they're doing whatever they can do to get the kids home and into school on time.
The Cypress Middle bus that comes to McGregor near Alliance of the Arts there, those kids were just getting off the bus when I left to come here at like 5:45.
Right.
And it's not that far.
Yeah.
And they get out at 4:05, I believe. It's because they're having to do so many routes for one driver.
How many drivers short are they, do you know?
Ooh, the last count that I remember was somewhere around 100, is that still,
It
you know?
sounds very familiar.
What is the ideal number our goal
100
number?
more?
100 more?
And I don't know what our numbers are right now.
But you're definitely short, big time.
Can I ask a question? If you could just maybe inform us a little bit on how this situation works. I've spent the last year researching the national teacher shortage, not necessarily for Lee County on a national level is what I've been researching. So I'm just kind of drifting into the bus driver shortage, because that's just not a problem in Lee County for everyone here. It's literally a national problem. So I see different states or different counties, and Florida has very large school districts. That's not the trend nationally. There's a lot of very small school districts in other states. So maybe they have more creativity than we do with some simple ideas. But coming up with like some simple solutions here, are all of those solutions subject to a SPALC agreement? Or are your hands, like if somebody had a really good idea on how to solve it, does SPALC have to approve it, I guess is what I'm asking you.
If it affects their working conditions, yes.
And pretty much everything does, right?
Nearly, yes.
Okay.
And one of the big things that affects our busing, our transportation routes is the timing of our schools, the way our
Right.
schools start. But
Yeah.
school start times are pretty sacred in Lake County, it's very,
Yeah,
it's a huge discussion to get those things changed. Part of the proximity plan that we're working on, hopes to address some of that, because if we can, part of it is the long distances, so if we can bring it so that we are traveling less distance per bus, that allows a little more leniency in terms of they can drop someone off, go to a different school. But it's really, really complicated.
Because adjusting the school choice would be.
Right.
choices big.
I think that the general public thinks there's some really easy solutions out there, but they don't realize that aspect of SPALC having to agree. So that's just my 2 cents. If that could be more out there, because people are like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And it's like, it's just not that easy.
And it's really not that easy because there's bargaining.
Right.
And bargaining does not happen overnight, it's a process.
Right.
Extensive process, so things just move slowly because people have to get together
Right.
and try to make decisions, and there's a way to do that, so, yeah, it's a difficult scenario.
Yeah.
And even when it seems like it's a simple decision, there are so many dominoes in that line that you change one thing and it changes so many other things. Because we are a big district. In a small district, if you have 3 schools, you can sit down with the 3 schools and you can figure things out. When you're looking at things this big, there are just so many interactions. It's really nothing is as simple as it appears.
Well, FSW Collegiate High School
Can
couldn't
I-
even offer
I have a question.
bus.
Hold on 1 second.
They couldn't offer busing.
They said they could pick them up, but it was down by Bell Tower, and like, we live on McGregor near Colonial, and that's, I'd have to pass the school to get to the bus stop.
Ron, go ahead.
At what point do we get a chance to sit down and address the issue ourselves as a group and come up with suggestions that we give to the board members? Or is that part of what we're doing?
Yeah, Ron, we're gonna move into that right now. I had just kind of opened it up since Ms. Fisher wasn't here for a little discussion, but that was a perfect segue. So I appreciate that. But so the reason why I think that all of us agreed to meet tonight was because we had 2 great meetings. The Career and Tech Education meeting, which I think was the best meeting probably in the 5 years that I've been here. It was the best meeting that I had been through. And then last month, we had the comprehensive health education. That meeting went extremely long, and I apologize for that, but we all had voted that let's continue it instead of bringing them back in January. So I think it was a smart choice. But we need, and I was kind of hoping Ms. Fisher was here because I wanted her input and to give the board, to give us advice on what we should really look at. And what our focus should be for this committee to present to the board towards the end of this school year. So the point of this meeting is to discuss any issues that you guys wanna review, and hopefully at the end of this meeting tonight, we'll be able to walk out of here with our clear focus of what we're gonna do. I will pass it to Michelle, because I know that she is passionate about both of these two topics, and so I was hoping, I had actually said to Bill tonight, is Michelle gonna be here tonight, and his comment was, I hope. So I'll hand it over to you.
I don't necessarily have a specific topic or topics, but what I would like to say is that I would like to focus, I'm talking loud, so hopefully the people that are on Zoom can hear me. What I would like to say is that I would hope that this committee could identify things in the strategic plan that we want to take a look at and discuss to make recommendations to the board. Because it's important to me that this committee operates with fidelity under our charge, which is to take a look at the strategic plan and make recommendations to the board based on items in the strategic plan.
And those two meetings that we had were directly tied to our
Right.
strategic plan, but just for the first
So
one.
if there are other things, sorry Cindy,
No, that's
but
fine.
if there are other things besides these two that the committee would like to bring up in terms of Envision 2030, then
So-
I think it's a good idea for us to have a discussion
So
about
before
those.
I move on, so Michelle, the meeting that you did miss, the first one, we were, I don't wanna say directed, but Ms. Fisher did give us hey, these are two good areas that we think that we would want you to look at. So that's why we kind of focused, and then Cindy said, all right, we're gonna get these two schedules in the next two meetings, and then you guys can decide what you're gonna do. So that's the reason why we ended up with those two presentations, it's just because Ms. Fisher thought it was gonna be important for us to review those.
So based on that, maybe this committee could have a conversation about those two topics, and if we have any recommendations to the board based on those two topics. Obviously, I didn't get a chance, I wasn't in that first meeting, but I did read the
Right, the
minutes,
minutes,
so.
yeah, okay, Bill?
Yeah, so I came prepared to address exactly what we said we were gonna do last time.
Yep.
As you know, I reached out to Carol Green, who's our lobbyist. She's done a great job for you folks that wanna go back to the 2021 legislative priorities. But we did a pretty decent job as a district addressing these. However, under healthcare, our ask was kind of short-lived with regards to money from the legislature. Now, we did get HB 519 passed, but my hot button is the mental illness and mental health issues, and that's one of the questions that we have on our survey. And I didn't take the survey yet, because I want to be influenced by you folks, the peers here tonight. So I look at this with an open mind, because right now, I check 3 times if I could, mental health supports. But that's something that Carol says we still need to lobby for, and I'll tell you, I've been talking to a lot of, we had Joanne and I were at a fundraiser last night for Anna Botana, so we know we can count on him. We have Brian Hammond tomorrow night, who's gonna have a bunch of folks there, a bunch of elected officials from the state. We were with Ray Rodriguez this week as well. So we have avenues to lobby these people, but it takes more than one voice. We all need to be saying the same thing. But there's a lot of work to be done, and there's funding out there. We got so much money out there in different buckets coming at us. It'd be a shame not to address some of these issues. And I'll just finish in 30 seconds here, I promise. But if you just watch the national TV, some students somewhere in some dysfunctional families going off the screen. We've already had several instances here in Lee County. We gotta put a stop to this stuff and try to train our staff to identify the families that are at risk. I know our one partner up there has been talking about family issues. I totally agree with them. So I'm gonna end on that note, but I think we need to take a look at the mental health issues here and try to get funding for that, make that part of our plan.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and that one this week that happened, the school did recognize it, and they told them to take the kid out, and they didn't wanna do it, so I mean, that's a whole different ballgame, but the school recognized the problem. And then it was now up to the parents, which we can all argue that. Melissa, you had something?
After the last meeting, I spoke to Ms. Fisher about the mental health aspect of it. something I'm passionate about, and unfortunately, there's a breakdown between what services the board, has approved and what filters down to the schools that then is passed along to the parents. Lee County School District has the contract with CPE that anything involving a child with, mental health issues, they call them in instead of the police. That's the mobile crisis unit. And I have a child who was struggling because they're in, ninth grade now, and it was never recognized. We got a recent diagnosis of high function autism, used to be called Asperger's. And nobody saw it. None of the teachers, it was, they were in the gifted program, Tanglewood, the part-time gifted and stuff. So although the principal was wonderful at the middle school, two of the teachers went above and beyond, just like the principal. They were, I could have made it without them. They didn't offer me the services or direct me to the services that we do offer. So there was a long time of not having help where we could have had help a lot sooner and saved a lot of issues. So there's gotta be a way for us to get that out to train the staff better, make them more informed. I don't think they're just withholding the information. I don't think that they're necessarily properly given the right tools to give us.
Cindy, the strategic plan, is there a paragraph that you can read that touches on the mental illness health, or how it is in the strategic plan, how it's built in?
Unfortunately, I can't get to my computer because if I do, it's
Yeah.
gonna take away from the Zoom.
Okay.
I understand.
It's a challenge of
Just
having
like-
dual meetings. I've been there. But we do have areas in the strategic plan that talk about supporting the whole child, meeting the needs of the whole child.
Right,
And so I think that's probably, when we talk mental health issues, it really is that social emotional health of the child, and that is definitely in several places within the plan.
Well, that's part of the comprehensive plan. It's comprehensive, it's not just one area over another.
Absolutely.
I'm just from the school that believes that you can't separate mental health from physical health.
Exactly.
So it's like taking a wheel, like I went to college many moons ago for this stuff, but it still holds true today that if you figure it like a pie, and if you're spinning it like a wheel, when one of those pieces of pie is broken, the whole wheel stops. So you can compensate with other things, like the medical side can try to compensate with the health side, and somebody's not doing well socially or maybe academically, intellectually, all of it falls apart. So I think that, yes, I think mental health is important, but you can't separate the mental health side for another child's lack of being able to develop intellectually. So we have to kind of make a balance, and our fight shouldn't be just for one thing over another. It should be for actually what's on the paper, the comprehensive health, which means the whole child, the whole family, the whole community, and I know that's what makes it comprehensive so large. So I feel like, yes, all those are very important, and maybe with COVID, we have some things that are coming out, but I think that my gut feeling says let's not put our funds and our energy to one thing and a lot of other things don't get met.
Yeah, I think your point's well taken. I think if we take a look at this document we just sent this past week, this ARPS 3, and you take a look at activity L, it pretty much encompasses all those things that you're talking about. It's all one big package.
Well, it is a package, I'm sorry to interrupt, I don't mean to, it's just that I just would hate because even though a child does have mental health issues, they do still have physical issues. And they still have academic issues and social issues. So our challenge is finding a way to really put that in another part of comprehension is that it's not just a class. You don't just take a class in health education. It's like health education is in math. in science, in everything. So when you talk about health and science, you're talking about diet and you're talking about exercise, and what does that mean? And when you're in history, you talk about, healthcare or people's health over centuries. It's not, so it's, when you say, so kids grow up knowing what is healthy. And so you don't just say, oh, health is sex ed, or health is going to the counselor, or health is this. It is all of that. And it has to be ingrained in the child from kindergarten. And that's and the parents have to be on board. So that challenge is enormous, I'm sorry. It's just, it overwhelms me when I read it. So I don't.
Except for the fact that there's an immediate need, like the depression rates have skyrocketed with these kids.
But maybe that could be something we can get from the COVID money, from this ESSER plan. That can be an immediate thing, that this anxiety and depression from COVID.
Yeah, that's one of the 15 on the list.
Right, but in terms of this comprehensive health thing, that could be something that has more of a slower, I know we always need it yesterday, but I just feel like there's no quick fix.
Well, it sounds like you may have an overall recommendation with some sub-recommendations
Yes.
in there. Your overall recommendation about comprehensive health and however the group would like to word that, and about making sure that that is addressed at every level, because as we learned at our last meeting, it really does need to be a pre-K-12 initiative, which it is not at the moment. So if the group decides you have a recommendation around that, then you can address that. But then you can also look at pieces of that, such as the mental health piece, and make recommendations along that as well. It doesn't have to be just one recommendation.
Well, and I also think that the gentleman last week mentioned about families in need. So
That was
the
Ron.
Ron.
Right.
The families in need might be an immediate thing that can come from COVID and that, especially if it's financial or emotional, or whatever. I'm just saying that if there's something that's an emergency, yes, we have to deal with that. But I think in terms of the health aspect of this is something that, and you have to be able to put it internally, like within the system. You know what I mean? It has to go in the system, so it's actually harder than you think. But in the end, a lot of the problems that we have will fix themselves in a way, because you'll have kids that will grow up within a system that know what a good diet is, that know what is, not a good boyfriend, or know, because they'll be more confident, they'll be more physically fit. Do you understand what I'm saying? I just feel that's a slower, the comprehensive health is a slower, longer term thing that I don't think we can fix in really quick. Am I being too negative?
No, it's good. Ron, you had something?
Yeah, I would like us to focus on the academics of the kids. Because I'm really here to solve the problem for the kids that's the most needed. And at the end of the day, I still want to get the question answered as to how many families are in the district. Because if we focus on families, we pretty much find out it's probably the same group of kids in the same household that need the most help. And so I would like us to focus on the strategic plan and figuring out what's an actual numeric goal for us, for our kids in the district. Not just some verbiage that say, hey, we want everybody to get better, but an actual number so that we can gauge what's our progress and what's our base point that we're starting from. And what I would love to see is us to have a 100% goal for proficiency. Not 70 because, hey, kids aren't there yet. I would like to see a 100% goal for proficiency. And if we shoot for 100 and we miss, cool, but let's shoot for 100, not 70, 80%. Because if that's the case, I want to know who's picking the 20 or 30% that's going to fail. So that's why I would like to focus.
Okay, anybody else on the computer that would like to voice their opinion? Or Ramey, I'll get to you in a minute.
It looks like Todd has his hand up.
Todd, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I just had a little bit of a point, And as a follow-up to Ron's point, academics are important as I understand it, as a part of this committee. But in order to focus on that, you have to focus on some of those intangibles and outliers, and that mental health is a piece of that. The other point I wanted to make, as far as the goals for the academics, with what you're mentioning, Ron, is 100% is not a realistic one. I agree we need a number, but 100% is not realistic from the standpoint of what the teachers have to do. But we do need to have some type of goal to shoot for.
It's really why No Child Behind they got rid of No Child Left Behind, because 100% proficiency was not realistic.
We should shoot for 100, and if we don't get it, cool, but we shouldn't be shooting for anything less than 100.
Right, but what does that cascade down to the teachers in terms of their requirements and what they have to shoot for? And that's why that you have to have something that's tangible, a little more tangible than that. Just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Raymond, you have,
Brent also has a hand
oh, Brent, you have your hand up?
I agree both academics and mental health are important, but I'm actually a huge fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if the students don't feel, they don't have food and security and safety and mental health as a component of that, they're not going to achieve the higher levels of academics. If the kids don't feel, if their kids aren't in a safe environment inside their own head or in their environment, you're not everything else is in jeopardy. Because I think they're both important. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I do think that safety and mental health security is an essential component to somebody being able to continue academic excellence.
Okay,
Can I ask Ron a question?
sure.
Hey, Ron, are you saying, I'm going by this survey, this 15, I'm trying to get some feedback with the survey that
Yes, sir.
we're supposed to. Are you relating your comments to number 2, address needs of highly vulnerable populations? Was that safe to say that one fits yours or not?
I'm sorry, repeat it again, say.
Okay, in our survey that we were sent, with the 15 questions, we have to pick 3. It sounds like your comments were address needs of highly vulnerable populations.
Yes.
Is that yours? Brad,
Yes.
was that your statement?
Survey? I don't recall. Are you asking, was it my statement?
Mask, have you seen the survey or not? Maybe you had a chance to click on it. Have you seen the 15 question survey? No?
Yeah, I think I did.
The district something.
It has 15 different areas that ESSER funds may be used to support. And one of those areas is to support the highly vulnerable populations. And so he was asking Brent if your statement, if your statement was in alignment with that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ramey, you had something?
Yeah, on what Ron was saying, just with focusing on the whole child and academics, I totally agree. I think my priority for this committee, the thing I would wanna talk about would be staffing issues and staffing shortages and how to think out of the box. I don't think the problem is gonna get any better in the coming years. I think we're looking at years of teacher shortages and bus driver shortages. So I think we are going to have to borrow some practices from the private sector that isn't usually done in the public sector. I would also, when I filled out the survey, I was disappointed that school safety wasn't its own thing. That's something I've been very passionate about and advocated for many years. You've probably seen me speak at board meetings for the last decade on school safety. So that wasn't its own category. Maybe it falls into some of the other improvement categories, but I did a write-in, so I think school safety has to be addressed.
How about your staffing needs? Where would you relate that on here? I agree with what you're saying about staffing. I mean, how they operate with not enough folks. I don't know if I guess we could put that down under other activities and issues. Would that be?
Several people have written in that they would like to use part of the money as bonuses for teachers because it is a 3-year grant. It's not an ongoing, so it's not like we can really use it to increase salaries. However, parts of it possibly can be used for bonuses. However, we're really not sure how much the state will approve in terms of that, because it really is supposed to be focused on the prevention or dealing with the effects of COVID. It can be argued that one of those effects is teacher morale. The stress that's been put on teachers due to that has caused a lot of extra work, which deserves a bonus. We think that there's a small amount, well, small in terms of probably around 7 million or so that we're fairly confident could be used toward that. To give everyone a bonus would be more like 66 million, and we don't know that something that large would be approved. So lots of people are writing that in the survey that's been there. It's certainly up to your discretion how you want to address that. But again, part of that will depend on what can actually be approved by the state and by the federal government.
I mean, last night, I don't know how many in here got to watch the board meeting, but something very interesting got approved by the school board last night with, I believe it was ESSER funds, but you can probably explain it way better than I can, but I think they were gonna hire 3 to 6, maybe not a designated number, but some type of coaches to go into the school and coach the principals. And I think that's a fantastic start to address some of the problems going on in our schools. If you start at the top and those people have the support they need, I think that was a great thing that the board voted on last night. I'm probably not explaining it well, but.
Well, they approved that job description,
Yeah,
which
okay.
means that now, if they decide that that is one of the ways they want to spend the money, they have the job description so that it can be used that way. I know there's a desire to hire, I believe, 3. Whether that's going to happen or not is a whole different thing, but at least now there's a job description so that if they decide that it does fall within the budget, if it meets the priority needs, then at least there is a way to do that now, which there wasn't before.
I actually disagree with that because they already have policies set up for them, but there's no enforcement of it, so that's the problem. They don't need additional coaches if they're not following what's already laid out before them.
Well, I think this, my understanding was this, principals get promoted to this job and they kind of get just thrown in and there's hasn't maybe been that support system of them having somebody to go to ask questions or, hey, this isn't going well in my school, and these coaches would serve as kind of a mentor.
Yes, we do have a lot of training that's provided to our administrators as they're moving up through the ranks. But it's just like any other profession. You look at a medical profession.
Right.
You don't put a doctor out there until they've had a lot of support.
Right.
They've had a lot of internships.
Yeah.
And they always have colleagues that they could go to.
Honestly, they can
Schools
contact
are
the peer
very
on their own.
isolated in terms of that. I mean, we do have lead principals, but they have their own school that they're trying to run as well as help support other principals. We have training at the district level, but nothing takes the place of that mentor who can be there and see how it's going on a daily basis and help people understand what their strengths are and where some areas are that, they can listen and see some areas where they really need some support. Because one of the biggest things we hear from teachers is, we want our voices to be heard. Some administrators are really, really good at that collective gathering of information and helping people feel that a part of a decision. And others, so sometimes it's a matter of style, but sometimes it's a matter of just not knowing how to do it. So having a mentor there or a coach that can help with that, I think will be extremely beneficial to the principal and therefore to their staffs.
I just feel like they've come up through the ranks to make it up to principal, that at that point they've gained, like you said, experience. I don't think that having hand-holding at that point is a good allocation of the money. I think that we need.
Oh, it's like any job. First time on the job, doesn't matter how much experience you've had doing something else.
Well, like last night's meeting, they said that's why you put an experienced, a new principal with an experienced AP or vice versa.
Can I add just one little thing? The other thing is too, is that they're looking to see, because remember what the ESSER funds are for, is to be able to see the slide that we had because kids were not able to go to school and we have some issues with kids coming back from COVID. So the other thing that they're looking at is where in our zones are we having children that are having some difficulties? And targeting those schools, because those are also some of the schools that not only are the children having some difficulties, they're sliding back, but we're also having teacher shortages, we may have extra things that are happening in that particular school. So part of the purpose of these coaches is to go into those targeted schools and help facilitate the principals to see what they can do to assist the teachers, make sure we retain them, see what we can do with kids to try to bring those scores and levels up. So that's part of the thought process, because we do know that we have pockets that are having problems.
I have a question, I think one of you can answer it. How many homeless students do we currently have in the district? I know, what was it, 2 years ago at Cyrus Lake High School, we had 21 that year. Which is a lot for the one school, so I can't imagine in the district.
Yeah, I don't.
Or that are in that classification as homeless, which, I mean, at Warren High School, I mean, I was amazed at that number. So how many do we have in the district? And I think for them, a lot of I went to school in Germany for 3 years and we weren't anywhere near base, so I had to go to a public German school, and how they do it there, and I don't know if we will ever get at a point where we could have like some hybrid version of it, but there after 6th grade, so starting 7th grade, you go to one of 3 schools. You either go to like a trade school, and then they're done. And now in the workforce, by 9th or 10th grade, depending on which route they went when they got there, then you had like, you know, the people were gonna get bachelors or whatever, and then you had the higher one. And it significantly reduces dropout rates, because sometimes you have a kid and you're sitting here forcing algebra down their throat and they're just not interested, they don't get it, it makes them feel bad about themselves then, but there's nothing you can give them that they can't take apart and put back together. You know, they just have different strengths, and I think that would help reduce dropout rates, and it would also help reduce the shortage of teachers, because the kids that parents or child that, you know, agree to it, they would go straight into like a trade school. And I'm not saying it's young to 7th grade here, but a hybrid version of something like that.
I don't want to cut off conversation, but I do want to bring us back to the purpose for this meeting was to look at the 2 meetings we've had prior and decide if we had any specific recommendations we wanted to bring forward, either around the tech colleges or around the comprehensive mental health program, and then discuss, which is what we've been doing now, what else do we want to look at for the rest of the year, so that when we decide on January meeting in February, I can start looking for
Right.
presentations.
Well, the tech
for
colleges,
us.
Yeah, I was
just
I was
saying
gonna,
about school.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just to add just a little bit to what Ms. Hatter was saying. We do have some schools, just wanna make sure that that's clear. We do have some schools that have programs within them for some of these trade and vocations, so I just wanted to throw that.
And we had a really good presentation on that
Yeah.
very first one,
we
so
did.
we.
But they're
we
still
looked
having
at
to do the
kind of-
academic,
Right, they
the
still have
regular
graduation
core
requirements,
classes,
which
yeah.
I think is the difference.
So bringing us back, obviously, I heard a lot of things here, but the thing that came up pretty much from everybody was that mental and comprehensive health was probably the most important part of everybody's discussion here. Obviously, we talked about academics and the needs of certain students. But I think from the standpoint of our first 2 presentations, it looks like we as a committee wanna focus on mental and comprehensive health. So now, and we will look, I've taken notes, obviously, Cindy can come up with some ideas based on some of the other things that have been said here for what maybe our second focus would be in the spring, and planning our next meetings, who would be coming to talk to us. But I think we all agree, correct, that mental and comprehensive health would be our focus for our first recommendation? Would that be
Some
the,
fall under the needs of the whole child or the physical and emotional safety in the strategic plan. I'm asking, I don't know.
I would see overlap personally,
Okay.
I think it would fit both areas.
And that's why I said the training of what we've already put money into hiring the psychiatrist, you know, and into the mental health, but it's a waste of resources if we're not properly training the schools to utilize that.
so Michelle, you're usually the education side here. and coming up with the wording, if we wanna focus on mental and comprehensive health, as it goes to the strategic plan, what recommendation or focus do you think we wanna put forward to the board?
Well, I think based on the presentation from our last meeting, one of the things that came out is what Bill mentioned, which was sort of this awareness and advocacy of additional funding to be able to implement some of the things that Lori and her team talked about that would be beneficial for social and emotional health of the students. One of them had to do with having students participate in those programs starting in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So that was, one thing we could ask the board to explore is the possibility of incorporating those types of concepts beginning in kindergarten through grade 12. Because that really
Right.
aligns with what we heard, and it also.
Well, we heard that they wanted kindergarten, they really wanted that,
Yeah.
to start in kindergarten, so I heard that same.
And they have that at HB 519 by this Representative Yarborough that the governor signed off on the end of April of this year. We have that. That one piece we have. But there's all these other things that go with it. The actual training of the teachers and staffing to all the other
Yeah.
points that fit into this puzzle that's on this sheet.
Yeah.
Those things all have to be encompassed.
John, you've been outspoken tonight.
I'm a little bit handicapped by the fact that I wasn't here last week, or last
Last month.
meeting, and so I'm taking it all in, listening to the comments and trying to piece together what took place. I don't know that I have a whole lot substantively that I can add at this point.
It was informative, watch
It sounded,
on
yeah,
YouTube,
it
you can watch
sounded,
it, but it was very informative.
it sounded like
It was a great meeting, there were a lot of things, in both meetings, there were a lot of things that I had no idea of. No, I'm not in the education side, but I know Bill and I were shocked, sitting over there in that corner, a couple times, saying, are you, really? So, we're gonna need to make a motion tonight, and word it. Cindy, you've always worded our motion that you think will work best, to the board, I know that's over the last couple of years.
They gave you big notice on
I've
that motion.
assisted in the wording, but I believe that the committee is.
Yeah, well, I
is
know,
gonna-
so, Michelle, did you wanna make is there a motion out there, since we all agree that we wanna focus on mental and comprehensive health,
Can I make one comment?
Yep,
About the academic side, I think if we do take into consideration the comprehensive health and the mental health, the academics will follow. Do you understand the improvement in academics will be the result of that effort?
I agree with
So I
that.
think that the gentleman that we're talking about, oh, we wanna have all this like high percentage of efficiency. I think if we really start helping kids get healthier kids make better learners. So if we address what we're talking about, that'll be the result of
That's
that.
what Brent had
Right.
said.
Right, which is what he was saying about so I think we're on the right track. I don't think you have to incorporate academics specifically, that's like a given.
But we have such a high rate of homeless students, that obviously affects their health. It affects their school, their education, their academics, and I think if we have that many in one school, we must have a lot in the entire district, and if there's something that could be done, because that's going to be a big part of the mental health, because if you feel abandoned or isolated or ridiculed because you don't have what everybody else has and you're a homeless student, I mean, that's gotta affect it. I mean, I just feel like there's something that's gotta be able to be done to help with that.
so,
Could we ask the board to explore ideas about incorporating mental health literacy beginning in K through 12, explore the curriculum? I think this is something I believe, I don't know, but I believe that the curriculum committee has also been discussing this. So we may want to get together with them prior to making a formal recommendation or a suggestion to the board. I don't know if you heard me, Cindy. It's my understanding that the curriculum committee is also talking about social and emotional health right now. So we may want to get together with them and maybe make a joint recommendation to the board based on that topic.
I'd like the recommendation to include the training of teachers, because the whole thing's futile to have it available if it's not being relayed to people who need it.
I think that's part of the comprehensive plan
Yes, it's
itself.
number two.
It's
Your
no, it
comments.
says that you have
Yeah,
to,
it's
it
right.
has to be taught by, it's
Yeah.
already ingrained in the system, it's already established that that's.
But it's not utilized.
Right, we're just not there, I mean, that's.
We just haven't had the funding to
To
do
do
it, that's
it,
why
now
we're.
we do, yeah.
But you could certainly make a recommendation, and if you want to wait and word it tonight and wait until the January meeting, you know, and see what curriculum has done, I could certainly speak with them. You could word it tonight, you could include the generalized statement around implementation of a comprehensive health program K through 12, including items such as, and then you could include your, you know, teacher preparation, whatever kind of follow-up you wanted to recommend. So you know, you can make it as broad or as specific as you want. But if you want to do some draft wording tonight, I'll be happy to talk to the curriculum committee. Possibly we could even, we've had joint meetings with them before where we have talked and come up together with recommendations.
So maybe we make our recommendation, not recommendation tonight, but we put it in writing. And then maybe you ask them if they wanna have a joint meeting in January. But we need to find out, number one, if that's their focus. If they're focusing on something else, it would be kind of a waste of time for them.
I think another thing we need to do, and I'll take this one on because I know we're very lucky to have Senator Rodriguez here locally representing us, because he was the chair of the whole Floridian Health Committee here the last 2 years. So he's really the keeper of the keys with getting listen to this vote he had. This is the kind of vote he turned out. The Senate vote was 40 favorable, 0 against. In the House, it was 117 favorable, 0 against. So when they wrote this bill, of course, like I mentioned, Representative Yarborough wrote the bill, but they really did a great job. So if we could have a discussion with him and say, what's realistic to getting done? Because what he does, he interacts with all the different school districts on all these issues.
Could you get them?
Well, I wanna talk to him about this, but I wanted to have this discussion tonight. So I'm gonna have him look at this list of your comments and let him give us feedback. This is what's realistic in the next 12 months to get funding for. Because why spin our wheels on things that we don't think is realistic, or he doesn't think is realistic?
And there might be an entity out there that's already doing something.
Oh, I'm sure there
Like,
is.
he would know
Yeah, he would
if
know
there
that.
is like a district that's doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
I just have to say this. It's probably not gonna be super popular, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think this committee may want to come up with some sort of generic language recommendation, only because I have a little bit of concern about just allowing, I understand about the financial aspect, but I have a little bit of concern about just allowing the state to say, this is what we're going to let you do. And then we say, okay, now let's figure out how we're gonna make that happen. How about if we have some sort of idea to propose with some of that goes along with that bill, so that we're not just sitting around waiting for the state to say, okay, this is what you can do. And then trying to figure it out. I think it's okay to have an idea to present.
That's fine, I have no issue with that.
I don't either.
That's fine.
Lucinda is what I was going to. Yes. Lucinda.
Yeah, well, I was gonna just make a quick comment, because I know we're trying to wrap our arms around how we really wanna structure this, this initiative. And if we look at the Envision 2030 strategic plan under the 21 to 25 initiatives, one of the focuses on there is meeting the needs of the whole student. So kind of encompassing what everyone has talked about this evening, whether it's mental wellness or community involvement or whatever the case might be. I feel like if we use that broad terminology with our recommendation, we can, as you mentioned, have subcategories underneath that to touch point on everyone's comments this evening. But that's just a thought.
Thank you.
So what ideas does this committee have of achieving this if we're gonna make this recommendation, how can this be followed through if we have staffing shortages in every school, in every department, in every grade? Where did we
I
find
don't think that would fall
qualified
under that same category, right? Because if we're focusing on the whole student, that also includes the resources in order to help those students, which includes staffing, it includes mental wellness, it includes, maybe additional after-school programs in order to help with mental wellness. Because a lot of times, if you know, a kid has the ability to go to a program after school that keeps them away from being at home on their on their iPads or whatever the case that they might be in. So I think that if we structure it in a way very broadly, we can create all these subcategories underneath it to touch point on like staffing shortages and things like that as well.
I think we can rely more on community, like parent
But
involvement.
what about partnerships, like
That's
if we did
bad.
like a
Each
partnership with the city?
519,
or-
519.
519.
Yeah.
I mean, we could create partnerships with entities that already do like after-school programs, like she said. They do, but you have specific criteria that it just can't be this open-ended kind of, free-for-all Parks and Rec program. It has to be, and even at every school, they have some form of after-school program. You have a very somewhat captured audience.
But they charge for it, not everybody can afford that.
Well, yeah, but they're
There's a
paying
lot of
for that
dollars a day.
regardless of the quality of it. Like, so they're paying whatever it is they're paying every week. If you maybe up the standard of what, the school says, hey, you wanna put your after-school program here, you gotta do this, and this. And I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there that she makes an excellent point. That's a partnership of something that's already there that I feel could really be improved upon. You have an opportunity to do training, to do education, to do study skills for kids that are in this downtime. And then when they go home, their parents don't have to do that. So it's just out there. I think that's excellent.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you, like my son, when he went to middle school over at varsity, they had a math team after school. That was one of their after school programs, was a math team. He was really bad at math until he actually joined that math team. And all of a sudden now, like even now that he's 23 years old, he actually loves math and is amazing at it. But it honestly is an attribute to that.
The training of teachers would cost no additional staff increase because you could have the people who came and spoke to us give the same speech to each school.
Well, I think in the comprehensive health thing, the teachers would be the ones incorporating it into like organized, it would be very organized.
Well, guidance counselors,
Right.
social work would know a lot of stuff that the teachers don't know to recommend.
But I'm not just talking about the
services.
mental health side, I'm talking about all of it. I'm talking about everything from dental health to mental health to, exercise and diet. Like, I'm just saying all of it.
Talking comprehensive curriculum, and I know it is, it's been under discussion for quite a while, we're trying to get legislation around it. Some of the pushback on it is the matter of minutes in the school. Either the more curriculum we add, the less time we have per curriculum area, and I'm not going pro or con.
Right,
I'm just trying to explain both sides of it, because I think that has been why it has been difficult to get legislation around it.
I
Because we
agree.
have legislation around reading and math, and
Yes.
social studies and science. And there's like, okay, so if we add health, comprehensive health to it, which absolutely agree should be ingrained. But it's very hard to write ingrained curricula. And so the time, it's difficult, but so if this committee, wants to talk about that, talk about the importance of that and recommend that the district supports the work toward that ingrained health curricula, however you want to word it.
But I don't think the school district should be providing the mental health services. I think they should be referring them to the appropriate channels.
But it's identifying. A
Yeah,
lot of it is
identifying and referring, not
before, way
necessarily managing.
before but in a health educator might, you might have a health educator in, let's say there's two health educators assigned to a school, and you see it'll come out in behavior or academics or some way. And those flags will be able to be identified, and you have a process. Hopefully we have a mental health process right now.
But it's not being utilized because the schools don't know, they
So-
don't do it.
In an effort to respect everybody's time,
Yeah.
since it was an additional meeting, Ms. Dupree, are we allowed to have people submit to me email recommendations? Probably
If he
not.
then shares it with
If
the
I then
whole-
share it with
whole
everybody?
committee.
Okay, so this is another reason I was asked to be here, is about sunshine.
Yep.
So I would not do that, because that could be perceived as a sunshine violation. Committee members should not be communicating via email or otherwise with other committee members based on the business of the committee. So what I would do is each individual can send it to Ms. McClung, who is
Okay.
staff, who doesn't fall under that sunshine, and
Perfect.
then she can compile it.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I ask everybody to do over your holiday homework, when you have all the time in the world, let's all each put something in writing to Cindy. And try to make it, let's respect her time. We don't need 3 pages of stuff. And because we want her to be able to give us a good brief summary of it in January. And then, so if we give her a 5-sentence, paragraph or 3-sentence, whatever it is, focus in on it and get it to her, and then she can present it to us in January. I think that would be the best idea.
Could you give us a criteria on how you want it written? Like if you say, can you do it in like 3 bullet points or whatever, and that,
There's not really a specified manner, there
Okay.
really, it's,
you're okay?
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
fine with however you wanna do it and we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, just-
I do recommend actually that we read House Bill 519, thank you for sharing that. Because I think it might help us formulate maybe
Exactly.
what we're trying to say, 519.
Let's go with what works.
And also review the strategic plan for the years 21 to 25 so that we know we are falling under, one of those items that is in the strategic plan. That way whatever we send to Cindy will be more focused.
I printed it out at my office today, but
Should we identify what we think our idea, which strategic plan it would go under, or do you think that that would be something that?
No, that's something
I think
this
that-
committee should do.
yeah.
So
You
yeah,
think
we
we
should.
We
Right.
should do that.
okay. I appreciate that conversation. That was probably deeper than Cindy and I thought it was gonna go and further, but it just shows that this committee has a wealth of requests and knowledge and information in here, so that's good. So it looks like we're gonna have plenty of things to talk about in the new year.
Along those lines, I did have a conversation with Brian Mangan, who is with our student services and is working on our code of conduct. He is gathering input and he did ask if this committee would be interested in having a presentation around code of conduct. He would be happy to come and meet with the committee, so I wanted
Absolutely.
to get that out there.
I know I would.
I would.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Then I'll talk with him and work on January or February.
Perfect. Okay, so we do have 2 members of the public in here tonight. So we have to give them the ability to speak if they have anything to say. So 2 of them happen to be spouses and I think they were here to help eat the food. So Joanne, do you have any? Okay. Melanie?
I thank you for allowing me to be here, but I think sometimes there's this huge list of things that you guys could be focused on, and sometimes that can be daunting with just one piece of it. You pointed out how daunting that one tiny piece is. So when my point was, when thinking about how to word something going to the board, try to focus on something that might trickle down the most. And it sounded like what was really bubbling up, I haven't had the opportunity to see the 15 points, but what was really bubbling up is the whole child. And then when you focus on the whole child, then yeah, you see the academics that the other members were concerned about, aiming towards 100 and getting the whole district really lifting up because of that. But it's a struggle to figure out how much of that, but if you take what you feel is most important now to focus on that, I think it'll be a success.
Perfect. 53 seconds. I told her she was limited.
Oh,
You have to,
oh,
I have to, right?
I said it was
Ms. Dupree
torture.
would be mad at
3
me if I
minutes.
didn't time it, right? So, all right, so that's the end of public comment. Do we have any good of the order?
I just have something I'd like to mention. I had the unfortunate experience of having to go to the DMV a couple weeks ago, and For those of you that haven't been post-COVID or during COVID, it's like a different world. You have to have an appointment, and if you don't, you're not serviced and you're turned away, and it's kind of crazy.
Then good luck making an appointment.
I did not have an appointment, but I'm very good at getting what I need to get done for my business, so I did get an appointment. But while I was sitting there in the little chair, a gentleman came in, young, mentioned he was starting a job tomorrow. They told him he didn't have an appointment. He said he had to get a license, He was gonna be driving a bus, and they said, you don't have an appointment, we can't see you. Well, he broke down crying, and he was like, it's before Thanksgiving, I've got 3 kids, I have to have this job. So I was like, come here, let's talk. So I pulled him aside, and he was actually gonna be starting a job at the Lee County School District to be a bus driver. And he said, if I don't get this appointment, I can't get my license. I was like, I got you, Ron, we're gonna figure it out. So we got a manager down, and Ron got his license. And then I got another manager at the DMV, and I said, can we have a special line for school bus drivers? Why do school bus drivers need an appointment? And so I had a conversation with them, but I think that's definitely something the district needs to look into, if we can streamline that process for our bus drivers coming on board, because it's a nightmare, and if they're passive people and they're gonna be turned away at the window, I am not passive, so I have no problem getting the manager. And the guy was like, literally, if you wouldn't have been here, I would have left. So,
2-month wait for me to schedule
Correct.
Charlie for her license.
so I mean, they were telling this guy to come back in January.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have to drive the bus. So I don't know who here, I'm sure y'all have way more clout with them than I have, if they can get a line or something for school bus
So
drivers.
just so you,
We'll refer that information to
Also,
Mr. Dodig.
so getting an appointment, if you wanted to get your appointment, so I do title work on cars all the time. If you want an appointment, and you went on today and looked for the future, it would tell you you're 45 days out or 60 days out. Every morning between 7 and 8:30, they release appointments for that same day appointments. So go on at 7 o'clock and they all open up. So
Right,
there
'cause they
are,
have a case where you can
correct, so
appointment now,
the day you wanna go onto their website at 7 o'clock. One of my
Okay.
friends who works there, she told me to do that. She's like, oh, you can get an appointment same day, you just go on at 7 AM and we release all of the appointments for that day that weren't booked.
Because they closed down a location at AAA, right?
Well, they did, but then they
Yeah.
also closed the Bonita location and they just reopened that, so now that one's releasing some stuff, but all right, any other,
But we worked with Sharon, and Sharon got your guy on this
Oh.
way.
Brent, you have a good of the order? His hand.
Brent, your hand is up. Did you have something to say?
I did, I posted it, actually, I posted it in the comment section. One resource I would recommend is health.gov. It's called Healthy People 2030. You click on Healthy People 2030, you click on schools, you can take a look at some of the recommendations that have been made for Healthy People 2030 that are related to school. It ties together what the group's been discussing, the mental health and how that's tied to academic performance, but it also has a link to the evidence-based resources. You know, I'm a huge fan of not recreating the wheel. You know, if there's evidence out there on some best practices, really kind of utilize those. Yeah, so Healthy People 2030, I think it pulls together a lot of what this group has been discussing. It's got really good research.
Great, thank you. And then the other Zoom user is
Lucinda, that's Lucinda.
Lucinda. Lucinda, you had your hand up?
Her phone's been a little wacky.
Okay.
Sorry, I was actually trying to unmute myself. That was from earlier, but I just kind of unmuted myself and spoke, so.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Preet.
So be careful with using the chat.
Yeah.
And the reason is that, I can't see what was said. And remember what the sunshine law is 2 individuals or more cannot discuss business of the committee or the board. So if you're in the chat and we can't see what's being discussed, that technically would be a violation of sunshine.
Right.
So I always recommend to all the advisory committees, I know it's tempting, but refrain from the chat.
Okay, all right, thank you. Melissa?
I will restate my motion at the next meeting, because first I'd like Attorney DeGabriel to be able to clarify if there's any exceptions from the strategic plan that we don't, isn't in our purview or exactly what is, and also a clarification of the inaccurate information that was given in correction of that. So I'll save it until next month until that's made clear.
So I read the transcript, and so there are some things that clearly were not clear. So let me explain what has happened and where we are now. The board made a motion to draft a letter to ask the governor to review a particular board member's alleged abuse of position. A letter was drafted by me, because the board then took a consensus to direct me to draft the letter. The letter was drafted, but again, for sunshine purposes, prior to that letter going out, it must come back to the board so the board can take a formal action. That's the way that we are doing it here in the district. And so it came back to the board. In that one meeting, the board declined to move forward with sending the letter. It came back to the board again because another advisory committee requested that the board take a look at that again. Came back to the board, and then the board voted to move forward, and the letter was sent to the governor under the chairman's signature. So that letter
But
has
that
been
was
sent.
after this meeting, because on November 16th, you had a meeting where you were still discussing finalizing the letter and sending it out.
It was not this meeting from yesterday, the meeting prior to
Right,
that.
and our
That's when it was
meeting,
sent.
the meeting
Ours
that
was
we had
November
was
10th.
before that.
Ours was
Oh, okay.
November
It was the
10th.
10th
So-
and your meeting was the 16th.
Yeah,
So it
so-
was said, it was already sent and a response already received a week before you guys were discussing not even having sent it yet.
No, the letter was sent,
But it
on
wasn't when we were
November.
told it was, and no response was received at that point either.
So just to make sure everybody's clear, the letter was sent on November 17th.
And to clarify, I believe Ms. Fisher said several letters have been sent.
She said the attorney sent it specifically as well.
She did, but I think that there was some confusion at that point too, because I believe she was referring to a couple of things. The governor had made a statement that he was not going to look at it.
And I said that was prior to this situation, isn't it? And she said no.
Yeah, and I think there was a little bit confusion of timing there. Yeah, I don't think that she purposefully gave wrong information, I think she was confused.
There were two news, news stories.
Yeah.
One of them was that the governors, I guess, had heard about it and said that he was not gonna take an action. And there was another news story that indicated that a letter was sent and the governor was not gonna take any action, but that letter was not sent from the district or the board.
So
And
if
she
we-
said the governor's office responded that there was nothing unethical and he wasn't gonna take action.
Well,
So-
he had said that in the media, that's
Right.
what he had said.
But it wasn't a response to your letter,
Yeah.
because it hadn't gone out yet.
So has he responded to the 17th? He's not.
Not yet. So that's where we stand.
Okay, so Melissa, you're gonna hold your motion until you get more information?
Yeah, because we also need clarification of what's in our purview then.
Well, what's in your purview is what is in
Anything with the strategic plan, correct?
the board policy. So the board policy is very clear that this committee, your job is to make recommendations to the board on the strategic plan. That is what your job is.
And mine involved in that, so okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, well, thank you again, everybody. We'll see you.
Mr. Chairman, one more little tip.
Yeah.
I got them to stop doing that. You don't have to do a motion to adjourn. You could just say, seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. And you guys can go at least 3 more minutes faster.
So again, thank you. Yeah, we'll see you next year and happy holidays.
Thank
you.
Thank you for arranging all of this.
Yes.
Yep. Hey, you guys need to eat though. You need to take some with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for letting me come to your meeting tonight.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.
Yeah.